Good morning, comrades all. Buenos días, compañeros y compañeras. I am Mark Kirton, and I'm from Guyana, and it's a pleasure to be with you, though not in person. I have attended several of these important conferences in Havana in the recent past, but because of issues related to our connectivity, especially by air, I have not been able to confirm flights both in and out of Havana. It is for me also important in that this conference celebrates the contribution of my colleague, Professor Norman Girvan of blessed memory, who contributed significantly to the integration efforts in Latin America and the Caribbean. And I would like to congratulate the Norman Girvan Chair at the University of Havana for sustaining our engagement with your prestigious institution. Today, I've been asked to discuss the importance of the Guyana Shield. Now, the Guyana Shield comprises the three Guyanas: Guyana, the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Suriname, French Guyana, along with Brazil, Venezuela, and Colombia. Very interesting in that the Guyana Shield is also part of the Amazon region. And it has been described, the Amazon, as the lungs of the earth, the Amazon rainforest, and has made a significant contribution to issues of maintaining the environment and the sustainable living, especially of indigenous peoples in our region. It's a very complex region, one might suggest, in that it has members who are signatories to the Treaty for Amazonian Cooperation. All of the members of the Guyana Shield, or the countries of the Guyana Shield, are signatories to the Treaty for Amazonian Cooperation since 1978. All the countries are members of CELAC, the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States. Some of the countries, Guyana, Suriname, are members of the Association of Caribbean States, along with Venezuela and Colombia. Also, they are a multiplicity of overlapping regional mechanisms, which all of the countries have become part of. I think it is important for us to look at the Guyana Shield in this context. We see that the Guyana Shield is made up of 270 million hectares and consists of varied and various ecosystems and provides livelihoods for many human cultures. All of part of the 6 countries I mentioned share this unique area. The Guyana Shield is also described as one of the last remaining blocks of pristine rainforest, with 15% of the world's remaining freshwater reserves. It has also been recognized that the biodiversity of the Guyana Shield provides ecosystem services such as food, freshwater, and medicinal products, as well as environmental support in areas such as water quality and pollination. Some argue that it is part of the global resource pool and has been recognized for its potential for expanded hydro energy production, agricultural development, mainly in the coastal areas, but also providing significant support for the ecosystems which we're talking about. One could argue here that the complexity is increased when one looks at some of the issues that have emerged in the Guyana Shield. We see where the smallest states of South America, Guyana, Suriname, and French Guiana. Both Suriname and Guyana are recently independent in the context of South American states. Guyana gained its independence in 1966 and Suriname in 1975. And French Guiana is still an overseas department, a territory of France, and therefore part of the European Union in a sense. So one sees complexity here in relating to the Guyana Shield. But when we look at what is traditionally the situation in the Guyanas, we see that they were first viewed as being influenced significantly by the British or Dutch, or later as part of what they term the United States backyard or sphere of influence. And this has led to a largely asymmetrical relationship marked by significant disparity in power relations, as suggested by the realist perspective in international relations. And one also sees that in those circumstances, especially with the small states now becoming independent quite recently, in 1966 and 1975, they brought with them, I think, a discourse with respect to the other states in the region. And the relations have largely centered around a sense of separateness and economic and cultural distance, which have constrained the emergence of strong and sustained linkages, especially between the small states of the Guyana Shield and the larger ones such as Brazil, Venezuela, and Colombia. Several arguments have been advanced, including the view that the impact of colonial bilateralism, which included political, social, and economic dimensions, as well as linguistic and cultural differences, have served not only to have that distance remain, but has limited the development of sustained linkages among the states. In recent times, however, the move towards new forms of regional collaboration in South America, the widening areas of South-South cooperation, and the new regional and global issues which the Guyana Shield and other countries of the small states of the Guyana Shield and the other states, including issues related to the environment, to climate change, to drug trafficking, to people smuggling, etc. I've seen a growing convergence of interests among those states and present the prospects for a more sustained relationship and engagement. One could argue, however, that there are challenges which still remain, among the Guyanas especially, including a continued consciousness about their small size and the potential fragility of their national identities, where we see that with countries that are larger and the dominance or the potential dominance of larger states like Brazil, Venezuela, and Colombia, especially Brazil as an emerging power in the hemisphere, one could see concerns and challenges that still remain. The view has also been advanced that the different levels of development, differences in physical and population size, natural resource endowments, and the presence and influence of extra-regional cultural influences have also constrained the growth of a sustained engagement among the states. One could say, therefore, that this complex set of factors has contributed to the development of strongly rooted negative perceptions on all sides, which have influenced not only popular attitudes, but also the formal relations, not only among the governments and peoples of the Guyana Shield, but among the wider CARICOM states in Latin America. We must note, however, that while these issues were traditionally part of the reason for this limited interaction, one could say that by the 1970s, there was the promotion of the third world and collective solidarity among developing states, and an emphasis on the promotion of South-South cooperation, which facilitated a slight change in the pattern of relations between the Guyanas and the other sets of states. We saw by 1975 the establishment of the Latin American Economic System, CELA, which is intended to introduce new economic linkages between Latin America and the Caribbean, and indeed all the states of the Guyana Shield participated, as well as the creation of Regional Maritime Transport Network, NAMCAR, the Latin American Caribbean Sugar Producers Association, JEPLASEA, and participation in fora such as the Inter-American Development Bank, the UN Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, ECLAC, the Group on Latin America and the Caribbean in the United Nations, GLULAC, and all helped, in one sense, to set the stage for a phased emergence of structured linkages between the two sets of states, that is, the Guyana Shield countries, the wider Latin America, and the Caribbean. One could say here also that the Treaty of Amazonian Cooperation initiated by Brazil in 1978, with the participation of all the countries of the Guyana Shield, provided that important opportunity to develop new patterns of collaboration between the countries of Guyana Shield. And by 1995, when it became ACTO, the Amazon Cooperation Treaty Organization, we saw the Guyana Shield countries playing a more important role in relation to the development of programs in the Guyana Shield. Now, one could also argue here that coming out of the West Indian Commission in 1994 and the report Time for Action called for widening and deepening of the relations between the wider Caribbean and Latin America. And I think this too prompted a stronger linkage or attempt at a stronger linkage with among countries of the Guyana Shield. By the 1990s also, we saw and the early 21st century, we saw the emergence of new regionalism, which was described as a multi-dimensional form of integration, which included economic, political, social, and cultural aspects. So that the adoption of new regionalism also, I think, prodded this a new dimension of inter-regional or intra-regional cooperation, including the consolidation of democracy, regional security, political dialogue, and cooperation. One could say also that the UNASUR, the Union of South American Nations, in 2008, brought all the countries of the Guyana Shield into an economic and developmental agenda in the region, which targeted energy, physical, social, and financial institution integration. And here we saw IRSA emerge. That is an attempt for the integration of regional infrastructure in South America, which we believe is an important element in the Guyana Shield process. There's also the view that the Guyana Shield has some significant challenges. One recognizes, for example, that there has been, in the recent past, a high level of illegal migration among the small, especially among the smaller states of the Guyana Shield. And one continues to see rising levels of transnational organized crime, trafficking in persons and small arms, and basically the development of guns and gangs, as they say. So that it is important for countries in the Guyana Shield to construct a firmer and more robust strategic alliance, which will look at some of those issues which the Guyanas especially continue to suffer from. And we talk here about, issues of transnational crime. The porous borders of Guyana and Suriname represent strong potential threats to their sovereignty and territorial integrity, and provide ample opportunities for greater movement of illegal activity. So one could see here the need for a security component in the Guyana Shield engagement. We have also noted that in the recent past, there has been an increasing movement of people, both in terms of illegal migration, the movement of small numbers of garimpeiros, for example, out of Brazil to conduct illegal mining in both Guyana and Suriname. We've seen a shift in the migration patterns of Latin America, which have brought some negative impact on the provision of services by those small states already threatened by economic downturn until recently. But there are possibilities, one could say, for the Guyana Shield. A mutual security agreement would be an important component. Additionally, I think that when we look at cooperation in energy, the energy transition, where Guyana and Suriname, which are now, well, Guyana is already an oil exporting state, and Suriname, which is on the verge of becoming such a state, can look at developing an energy corridor among the Guyana Shield states to ensure energy security among those people. I think it is also important to look at agriculture. Agriculture in the Guyana Shield, especially with the capacity of countries like Brazil and Venezuela to interact and to provide that kind of joint venture in agricultural production and development, which one sees as important to ensure that these can redound to the benefit of the wider citizenry of those countries. I believe also that when you look at CELAC, when you look at the kind of issues that are, the infrastructure issues that limit interaction among the states, even with the absence of UNASUR, which is now, I think, reduced in status, I believe that there could be a new vision emerging where the countries of Guyana Shield can have the new infrastructural engagements and arrangements to ensure movement of people, the more trade, increased trade, and economic cooperation. We also cannot forget, I think, that while all of these positives may emerge, there are still unresolved border controversies, most significantly Venezuela's claim to 2/3 of Guyana's territory. And this is at present at the International Court of Justice, and one could argue here that it is important that compliance with whatever the judgment is be recognized and guaranteed by all the states of the Guyana Shield. So that when we look at the Guyana Shield and its significance, I feel that there are some areas that, while challenges remain, the prudent development of linkages among the Guyana Shield states can have a positive impact on the development of countries, especially the small states of Guyana and Suriname. There must, however, be well-coordinated cross-border efforts engaging all stakeholders, both public and private sectors, as well as civil society organizations, and at the technical level, there must be every effort to protect the biodiversity of the region and to ensure that there is exchanges of information and expertise, the sharing of technical know-how, and adequate investment funding to facilitate economic growth. In conclusion, one sees that even though there have been changes in both the political and economic environment in some of the countries, and the sluggish economies of some Guyana Shield states, we see, and one could argue, some suggest the general reduction in momentum in regional integration efforts across the region, as well as a deceleration in the collaborative arrangements which were emerging in the Guyana Shield until quite recently. One could argue here that the states of the region must demonstrate greater political will to accelerate the process and pace of collaboration, especially in the context of the inexorable march of globalization. One should say that the small independent states of the Guyana Shield, Guyana and Suriname, must now effectively use their geography and geographical proximity for sustained engagement with the larger Guyana Shield states to ensure a better coordinated engagement and an important movement forward for the peoples of this region. I close by suggesting that we have an opportunity to widen, through the vision of the Guyana Shield states, the linkages between Latin America and the Caribbean, and to use some of the existing mechanisms to plug forward and to move forward this process as we grapple with the changing geopolitical environment in the hemisphere. I thank you and I wish the conference all success.